Are you constantly on the go? When it comes to snacking, are you choosing convenience over healthier options? This is a Healthier Michigan podcast, episode 155. And coming up, we discuss ways we can approach snacking in a smarter way while on the go. Welcome to a Healthier Michigan podcast, the podcast dedicated to navigating how we can improve our health and well-being through small, healthy habits we can start implementing right now. I'm your host, Chuck Gatica, and every other week we sit down with a certified expert and we discuss topics that cover nutrition, fitness, and a lot more. And on this episode, we're going big on snacking, how we can set ourselves up for success when it comes to fueling our bodies while on the go. With me today is registered dietitian for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Shanti Appella. Shanti, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Well, this is interesting because we sort of make assumptions, I think, about snacking. We're constantly, it seems, on the go, all of us, one way or another, whether you got a big family, no family, you're driving here and there,
Right.
and you're trying to make healthier choices that may fall to the wayside at times because we get too busy or something else comes up and you're favoring convenience. That's not a new topic. It's the way the world is revolving, I guess, now. But if we look at some of the data, according to the CDC, 37% of adults are consuming fast food on a given day, and fast food snacking would fall into that. So it appears that fast food snacking and other fast food can impact blood sugar, blood pressure, our overall health, at least in the short term. And additionally, they say that diets rich in fast food could lead to all kinds of issues for the body, maybe digestion, inflammation, heart health, a whole lot more. So how do we approach smart snacking while we're on the go so we can keep our health great and still be fueled up in between these pit stops of life?
Yeah. So I think maybe it's helpful to talk about why we snack as a society and why we should snack.
Okay.
So first, a lot of us snack because we're bored, because we want to indulge in something that tastes really good. Maybe we're distracted. We're just like sitting at our desk or typing, working, and the food right there next to you is just a distraction. It could be that we're hungry. Maybe it's something cultural. Some people snack because they're not sure where their next meal is going to come from. So, kind of that food insecurity driving it. Now, why we should snack is more so there are these kind of, blanks to fill out our fuel for the next meal. So they give us more energy throughout the day. Oftentimes people eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's something to hold you over.
Mm-hmm.
It can also be something that prevents you from overeating at your meal. So say, you eat breakfast at 7 a.m. You're not going to eat lunch until 1 p.m. 1 p.m. That can make you kind of run out of energy. And maybe once you do get to that 1 p.m. meal, you're overeating. You're eating so fast, you're not really recognizing how much you're eating.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I think is it's a great way to fit in all the nutrients that you kind of didn't get into your meals. Like if you, for example, know what you're going to have, a general idea of what you're going to have throughout the day, you're like, I'm not really getting my my goal for vegetables or protein or something. It's a way to fit that in.
Well, it's interesting because I think I'll just speak for me. Sometimes I think, well, I'm not thinking of protein or vegetables all the time. I'm thinking, oh, this candy bar has nuts, so it must be okay, right? I'm doing something good for myself. And obviously,
Right.
I'm talking myself into that one. But trying to find a way to get healthy snacks, even for purchase, is going to be a challenge unless you're one of these folks that use all kinds of containers and baggies. And I know you've talked about food prep in the past. That's a way to maybe navigate into that space, right?
You're so right. It can be challenging to find things at the grocery store or at convenience stores that don't have a ton of added sugar in them or aren't so heavily processed in another way. It's hard to find a granola bar, a protein bar, anything like it that doesn't have a candy's worth of sugar. So it can be challenging. I think, too, it's important to note that, our country spends about $14 billion a year on advertising for, food.
Wow.
And 80% of those are going to promote the fast food, the sugary drinks, the candy, and these snacks that we're talking about that aren't so healthy, right? So they're very accessible to us. They're easier to grab and go. And unfortunately, they're not formulated for health oftentimes, even if they say that they are. So I do have some of my favorite snacks I could share.
Yeah, sure.
So some of these might be a little interesting. I, grew up in a different country, and so I tend to maybe eat a little bit differently than some people. But I remember first moving to the US and being really shocked that chips were such a regular part of a rotation for snacks. I had only ever been allowed to have that. I moved here as a teenager, but I had only ever had that on special occasions or like a Friday night when you're watching a movie, never as a snack, right?
You're talking about potato chips?
Potato chips,
Yeah.
yeah, those were
Yeah.
special occasion foods. But some of the things that we would see in our, school cafeteria that I often would have, still have, are things like kefir. It's rich in probiotics. It's got some protein. Oftentimes, there's some fruit blended into it. We would also see a lot of open-faced sandwiches. So this is what I encourage people to do with snacking: is think outside the box. Snack foods don't have to just be snack foods. Breakfast foods don't just have to be breakfast foods, and so on and so forth.
Ah.
So sometimes as a snack, I'll just heat up a very small portion of my leftovers from the night before. Doesn't have to be lunch. I'm just needing something to hold me over until my next meal, or to give me some energy, right? But the open face sandwiches I love because you can make them so versatile. You can have one whole wheat piece of toast or something like that. They range from 70 to 100 calories, where you're packing in a lot of fiber, and then so many opportunities for protein on top. I love putting hummus on them. I am not an egg eater, but sliced egg is a great option too to get some protein, and so many different options for vegetables: sliced
Avocado,
tomato,
right?
avocado, yeah, so many different things. So you can make it your own. You can make it to what you're feeling that day. But what I like to keep in mind for snacks in general is we want to keep it to about 150 to 250 calories.
So does that idea also kind of sneak in that we've heard of this over time, the 5 smaller meals a day? In other words, you're calling it a snack, but if I'm going to have an open faced sandwich at 11 o'clock in the morning to get me toward lunchtime, or same thing in the
Yeah.
afternoon, that's kind of a mini meal, but that makes sense.
That's kind of what a snack is, though, right? It's just food, right?
Well, yeah, right.
Yeah. And so it's up to us what we want to make that snack in our mind.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
again, it comes down to this caloric value, right? Like if we want to try to stay under 250 or so, that's kind of where a lot of these snack bars are as well. So think about, I was saying like the open face sandwich, maybe it's 70 calories for an egg. That's all protein. 70 calories for the slice of bread. Maybe you spread something on it like hummus, 30 calories, and some 30 calories of vegetables. That,
Yeah.
that'll really fill you up with that protein and that fiber. So I think that's important. Now, dark chocolate with nuts is a good idea. I also love cutting up some Honeycrisp apple slices and serving that with just a tablespoon or two of almond butter. There's so many different fun nut butters out there now. I know people love peanut butter, but in the almond and cashew butter category, they've got all these ones now that they add flax seeds to add a little bit more fiber. They've got vanilla flavors. They've got all these different things that don't necessarily add a lot of sugar. So I love those with some apple slices.
Well, to be fair, some convenience stores have caught the wave, and you can walk in and it's a matter of getting your hand to go the right way. Is it going to be the fat laden meat sticks and chips department, or is it going to be that little cup of hummus with carrot sticks?
Right.
You can find those. You can find fresh bananas. You can find other things, but you've got to somehow program yourself to figure those out.
Yes. And I think, it's no secret that the food inflation is real, right? A lot of people are experiencing sticker shock at the grocery store. So if you're looking for snacks to easily pack that you spend maybe 15 minutes a week putting together so that you're ready to go. I love doing that for work, for example, but cut up some fruit, put them all kinds of different fruit in different containers. Maybe you put like a little bit of the almond butter, like I was saying, in a little container, a few of those. You may want to do something like pre-portioning your hummus. You talked about the little pre-portioned hummus packets. So crazy how expensive those are compared to if you make them at home, right? So, and I think one of the things people tend to do when they don't buy the prepackaged snacks is that they don't necessarily portion it out for themselves. And that's where we can get in trouble and, overdo the caloric consumption a little bit, especially when it comes to foods that are very dense in calories. So I'm talking about nuts here because they are a healthy fat, but fat still has 9 calories per gram, so it adds up. So I suggest people kind of think about that. If you're wondering what a serving size is, it's different for every person. It's different for what fills you up. But if you want to shoot for that kind of caloric range I gave you, that's a good option. But the nutrition facts label does have pretty good guidance when it comes to what a serving is.
Well, that portion control thing, I mean, you're really smart to say that snack is a mini meal, because we've got this portion control thing as a society, maybe out of control at times anyway. So if that extends to snacking, I'm thinking, how many times have we jumped in a car in a state where we say, "What are you doing this weekend?" "Oh, I'm going up north." And how many times have we pulled over to get gas or something, and that bag of nuts isn't the little small one, it's the 5.95 bag of nuts. That's pretty easy to go through on a couple-hour drive. So you've got to have some discipline in trying to
Right.
figure out, what are you going to do? You're going to eat a few and you set them down. To be honest, I take that bag and I lock it back and I throw it in the back seat because I can't get it.
No access. Access denied.
I know I'm going to keep getting it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of that distracted eating and boredom eating comes in, especially
Yeah.
when we're driving. So I think if we know we're going to be putting ourselves into situations like that, like for example, sitting at your desk or driving for a long period of time, set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And pack smart.
The connection to our health is always
Yeah.
intriguing, because just like large meals, your 3 squares a day, if you're going to have them, it's interesting to see how much salt and sugar is packed into various foods. And again, to be fair, I have seen, not many, but if we go back to the nuts analogy, you can find unsalted nuts, but
Yeah.
it's not easy because they seem to all have salt. And then now I've noticed what they do, and I don't eat a lot of nuts, but I've paid attention. Sea salt, as if that makes it better that there's a lot of sodium in there, right? I don't know. Is it coming from the Dead Sea or the Atlantic? I'm not sure. It's just they're trying to make it sound a little more healthy for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we know it's basically the same thing, and our blood pressure isn't going to
Yeah.
pass judgment on whether it's sea salt or table salt or Himalayan sea salt.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's this other idea that you're pointing out, that oftentimes we're snacking while streaming something, driving, sitting at a desk, whether at work or at home. You've got kind of a double whammy there, don't you, Shanti, where you're not moving and you're now ingesting maybe a lot of salt. So if you're not hydrating well, now what?
I think for occasions like that, it's nice to be able to mindlessly snack sometimes, right? Like we're
Yeah.
all guilty of it. But some things that I like to do for those situations, if I know I'm going to be, in a car for a long time, is I'll pack sliced cucumber. I love European cucumber or the English cucumber because they don't have a lot of seeds inside.
Yeah.
But dipping that in a little bit of buffalo sauce or some Greek yogurt is so good. And you can kind of keep crunching. Same goes for carrots. I love these carrot chips that you can find at the grocery store. They're just crinkle cut. There's nothing fancy about them. But the way that they're cut, it does something to me. I like them.
Yeah.
And my dogs like them too. But anyways, when we find things like that, that are these, non-starchy vegetables, we can really fill up on them. And I think that's important. I think a reminder too is that the recommendation for fruits and vegetables is 3 vegetables, 2 fruits a day. So that's a great opportunity for us to fit those in our snacking sessions.
And you were kind of saying this, but back to portion control. If you're grabbing a handful of crinkle cut carrots, you're not counting them or weighing them. You're just grabbing a handful and go, why? Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing really to mind there.
So what other personal things do you like to take with you? Because some of these things I can see, I'm not a big kefir guy. I love Greek yogurt, but there are certain things where I'm kind of like, I cannot see driving up north with a cup holder filled with a cup of kefir.
I love that you're imagining this, though. You're like, what do I want to take up north?
I'm trying to get into the kefir thing because I've tried it and I'm like, I'm not quite sure.
Understandable.
But what are the ways to get over that? Is it simply just trying it once? Because I've got this preconceived notion of what it may be like.
No, my fiance, he won't touch it either because he is scarred from the time that he poured it. Actually, no. he didn't just pour it into his coffee. He steamed it first. We've got
No
a little
kidding.
espresso maker.
Oh,
He
yeah.
he pours it in. He notices it's quite thick, but maybe thinks, oh well, it's kind of like heavy whipping cream. We'll steam this up. Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah.
goodness! Could you imagine the sour coffee plus the sour
Oh, yeah.
kefir? So yeah, no, it's not widely accepted in my house. So instead, yeah, Greek yogurt with some cut fruit is great.
Right.
I love mixing a little bit of this like lemon flavored yogurt with some plain yogurt because I don't love mine very sweet. So I do a little mix
Uh-huh.
of both. I also really love crunchy chickpeas. There's this brand called Vienna. They have all kinds of flavors. There's like ranch, there's an everything bagel seasoning, there's
Ah,
honey roasted barbecue. There's all kinds of flavors. And what's great about them is that they're roasted, they're not fried, but they are so crunchy, full of fiber. It's crazy how much fiber is in chickpeas. And of course, it's going to hold you over until your next meal, and they're really tasty too. You can make them in the air fryer.
and do you season them when you make them in the air fryer?
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do all kinds of fun things. I do a little bit of brown sugar with cayenne pepper, a little sweet and spicy action.
Ah, yeah.
And I think it's good to be cautious of how much sugar is in things, but don't be afraid to use a little bit to make
Yeah.
something more palatable, right? We just want to be cautious of how much. Another thing I love to bring is popcorn. So, of course, light popped. We want to stick to those that have about 35 calories per cup. So, you can have a few cups if you like. Actually, on healthiermichigan.org, we have some great fun recipes of some DIY mixes you can do for your popcorn. And one of my favorites is one with nutritional yeast, because nutritional yeast, it's not actually yeast, but it adds this like beautiful nuttiness and adds a little bit of extra protein, and it's almost like a sprinkle of cheese on there.
Is that what it tastes like? I've never had it on popcorn.
Yeah, kind of. And
Oh,
if you mix it with, a little bit of like maybe some herbs like dried thyme or dried oregano with a little bit of garlic, it definitely hits the spot.
well, it's interesting. You're saying 35 calories a cup because the popcorn that's supposed to keep me skinny, if I'm not, I'm going by memory. If I'm not wrong, it's like 100 calories per cup. So there still is some fat or something in
Yeah,
there beyond the
yeah.
popcorn, right?
And just again, it goes back to how much you're looking to have in a snack
Yeah.
calorically for your size and your goals, and what really is going to hold you over. And then again, like what you're looking for as far as palatability. Like if you're someone who just wants a little bit of extra fat, maybe you just have less. I think it's silly to just go for the extreme healthy option sometimes, when there's plenty of nutrients that we can have that is a little bit more palatable with some fat and some sugar.
So being deprived as a youngster, as you were, where you couldn't have chips or sweet candy unless it were a special day of the week. I'm
Uh-huh.
making I'm making stuff up here, but I'm joking with you. But the idea of what does Shanti have when you want to go crazy? Like, do you grab a
Oh.
candy bar? What do you have? And can you do that with people around you who know what you do for a living? Or are you like, oh, I gotta hide now?
Well, yeah, so it's funny. In Sweden, there's something called lördagsgodis, and it means Saturday candy. And it's this
Ah,
phenomenon where basically kids only eat candy on Saturdays. It's
oh,
wild, but it happens. And maybe, on like Christmas and things like
yeah,
that, your
yeah,
birthday, maybe you get some candy. But yeah, it's a real thing. But I think it has shaped what I consider snacks.
yeah.
I am proud to say that I am a dietitian who would never pass judgment on anyone, and I'm not going to feel guilty about what I consume in front of people because people will say stuff. They're like, "Oh, the dietitian's here. I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be careful." But I think it's so important to have the foods that you enjoy and just find balance. But if I were to say my like guilty pleasures, it would be Nutella by the spoon,
That's
and
a good one.
honestly, chips with sour cream. I love these pop chips. They actually are popped. I just love the way they taste, but the barbecue flavor. They are kind of actually lower in calories than a lot of potato chips, but they are popped. They are delightful. The crunch and, with a little bit of sour cream, that's my jam.
It is interesting how your childhood can influence even your taste buds moving forward through adulthood. My wife was raised in the South, and her big thing with her family Sunday nights was having chips just that time. She never mentions chips another time, with sour cream and onion dip. And to this day,
We would get along.
yeah, if she has a craving, that's what it is. But it takes her immediately back to Sunday nights as a kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she'll say it out loud every time.
Aw, I love that.
Yes. And that is, in a way, for her, maybe it's not tomato soup and grilled cheese, but that's comfort food for her because she's thinking of her mom and dad and, all that goes with it. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So in your experience, are there any other strategies we should be thinking about when it comes to smarter snacking habits? I mean, you've covered a lot in busy schedules. I think a large part of this is trying to consider prepping, right? To try to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, plan, prep. I think also write things down that you like as a snack, because sometimes when they fall out of your rotation,
That's
it's
interesting.
easy to forget about them.
Yeah.
Yes. So something my fiance and I do is every Sunday at 10 o'clock, we sit down around the dinner table and we have breakfast together. I know we sleep in quite a bit, but we talk about what we were going to have for the week ahead meal wise. We also talk about what snacks are going to fit in there, what breakfast we're going to have, and which ones are going to be convenience things, like which days might we not want to cook. And we create a grocery list accordingly so that we don't really go out of that. But I think it's something that helps us because then we can go back. I write these things down. It's almost like I take minutes, but I will go back and be like, what did we used to snack on that was so good? And it'll bring back some things. So anyways, I encourage people to write things down that they really enjoy, bring them back into rotation and switch it up sometimes. And, when it comes down to it, your preferences are going to change. Don't feel guilty about it, but try to fit in some things that are going to be, filling in the gaps for your nutrition for the day.
Well, you've got so much knowledge in this department. I have to tell you that if I had to sit next to you at a dinner party, this has happened to me in the past. I'd be if you're looking at what I'm getting, like what's my portion? Did I get an extra piece of cake? I had to sit next to the former head of Weight Watchers, the late Florine Mark, on a panel luncheon. And they're done with lunch and the guy comes up, the server, would you like dessert? And puts this plate of chocolate cake. Shanti, I couldn't eat it. I mean, I thought I would love to have it, but there would be a little pressure there. And so that's an interesting long way of me saying that conversation you're having with your fiance, you're kind of applying pressure to each other though, aren't you? That you're planning, that you're talking about it, that you're going to shop from a list. You've got a shopping buddy there. That itself is a bit of accountability.
It is nice, yeah. And, we do make sure that we fit in things that we love and that are special treats. Like ice cream is certainly going on there, the hazelnut crunch kind.
Yeah, we left that one out. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Right. Well, any other takeaways before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just think outside the box. Snack foods do not just have to be snacks, right? Have that open-faced sandwich. And, if people want to learn more, Healthier Michigan has got a lot of interesting snack options, including that one tip that I included for the popcorn. Those seasonings are really fun.
Yeah, great. Well, good to see you again. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Chuck.
Shanti Appello is a registered dietitian for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. We thank her, and we thank you for listening to a Healthier Michigan podcast. It is brought to you by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. If you like the show and you want to know more, check us out at the newly refreshed website that Shanti was talking about, ahealthiermichigan.org/podcast. When you include podcasts, you get all of our episodes, over 150 of them now, but you can also get all those other great posts like the one about popcorn and so much more. You can leave us a review or a rating on Apple Podcast or Spotify. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. You get new episodes, old episodes for your smartphone or tablet, so be sure to subscribe to us. Hit that button on Apple Podcast or Spotify or your favorite podcast app. I'm Chuck Gatica. Stay well.